Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic for which it
stands
one
one nation, under God, indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everyone. I do have to read this first. Please note that this meeting is being conducted utilizing electronic equipment in compliance with State Law, Public Act 21-1 as such. This meeting is being recorded and will be available to the public in compliance with state law. If you're attending remotely, please remember to mute your microphone unless you are speaking. Anyone participating remotely should state their name and title if applicable at the outset of each occasion that such person is speaking. Votes taken during which any member of this body are participating remotely shall be taken by roll call vote unless the vote is unanimous. The chat features will not be utilized nor considered during this meeting. All right, good evening, everyone. I will do roll call for Board of Finance and Town Council, so we just move things around. Vice Chair Lapellis is here. Ms. Martin is here. I, Jonathan Formicella, I am here. Sean O'Rourke is here. Jessica Katuska is here. Donald Wales is here. Jason Mauer is here. Kevin Reed is here. Is Terry Rooney on the line? He is. Not hearing from Mr. Rooney. Mr. Rooney is absent. Board of Finance, Chairman Michael Manjos is here. Vice Chair Rebecca O'Donnell is here. Greg Benno is here. Mary Hall is here. Steve Kirsch is here. And I was told Dane Kirchnavy could not be here tonight, but I will ask, is Dane here this evening online? Not hearing Dane. Right. So item 3, joint discussion of Board of Finance regarding the fiscal year 2023 budget. Mr. Manjos, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for having this meeting. I think it's been a good process we've worked on in the last few years. And since we do have some new faces and some old ones like mine, I thought it'd be a good time to kind of just walk through, what we've done in the past couple of years and what the expectations are for both boards going forward. Obviously, the First Selectman and the Finance Office, Ron and Heidi, have worked tremendously on this budget. This is about as thick a one as I've ever seen. It's comprehensive. It's very transparent. I think it's probably the most detailed oriented one I've seen in the last 10 years. I really applaud their hard work and appreciate it. I know the long hours that go into this, so it doesn't go unnoticed. Just a little history for the people who are new. When I started on the board about 10 years ago, the town council would typically work on the budget, make a ton of line item adjustments, positions, staff, and then it would go to Board of Finance, and a lot of it would get undone, 4 weeks later. There was very little coordination or the cooperation between the boards. So when I became chairman, I did speak to council, and we tried to take a different path and try to just make it clear what everybody was trying to accomplish. I think this has worked out really well. I think it's a much more cohesive approach, and I think it's worked to better budgeting. So just so everybody is aware of, the process. Town council obviously has no authority over the Board of Ed budget. And even the Board of Finance, that only comes to us as a total number. So it's something we will discuss once it comes through. It went through the First Selectman. It's been forwarded without change. The council, I expect, will dive into line item detail, make recommendations to the First Selectman budgets, review positions, changes, bring in department heads, make additions and subtractions, review salaries. All those things are really the role of the council. I don't expect the role of the finance department to be doing that. Our role, the way I certainly see it, and certainly open for debate and question, is basically to try to figure out the best way to fund the recommendations of the First Selectman and the Town Council. That is kind of the management of the town. We are the finance arm. We figure out what we can afford and then what the best way to pay for it is. And that's really where Board of Finance will focus. Council will review the capital plans. I know it's on the agenda for one of the meetings to really dive into the details of each of the plans and kind of prioritize what's important. Board of Finance's role in this is to basically come up with a number we're comfortable with the town affording from a bonding standpoint. But finance's job is not to pick projects, and it's not something I've tried to avoid very hard. To me, it's the first selectman's and the council's responsibility to really set the direction, pick the projects that are of priority, and then kind of propose to the Board of Finance, who will figure out what we can handle on a year-over-year basis. And I think what we've looked at is we've knocked off quite a bit of bonding over the last few years. Our current debt level is as low as I can ever recall it. We will have another $5 million rolling off in the next year. So there is capacity for us to take on some projects. But again, those projects should be directed from council and the first selectman. First selectman has, again, built out a great budget with lots of detail moving forward over the years, so we can all discuss it. But it's certainly something I would like guidance from council on. Board of Finance will spend a lot of time on the grand list. The grand list has shown quite a bit of growth this last year. It's going to make what I expected to be a much more difficult season more manageable because the mill rate will have considerably less pressure on it due to some growth that we've seen. But we will sit down with the assessor and review the assumptions and do some calculations on risk and make all those assumptions before we do set a mill rate. But I expect it'll be a fairly conservative rate unless something dramatically changes. We will also spend a lot of time on revenue, both on the town and the government side. That's part of the finance role, just figuring out where the money's coming into so we can assume what's left over would need to be covered by taxes. We're also going to spend a little bit of time on pension. The town's pensions are very strongly funded, but we do not have the most updated data yet. That data will probably come in April. And so there might be some adjustments that we'll be able to make based on our funding status, which right now is very strong. We'll also get updated insurance numbers probably close to April. Right now, there are guesstimates in the budget, which have been decently accurate over the last few years, but it's always a risk factor. We'll also take a look at some variable items like fuel and things where there is a risk of having a variation. And then basically, my intent and hope is that council is going to spend a lot of time digging into the line items that will prevent the need of finance to do that. My assumption is we will leave all the personnel decisions to council and the pay decisions, and we'll just stick to the finance side. So that is the approach I'd like to take. It'll leave us plenty of time to dive deeply into finance, the grand list, fund balance, all those things that are important on the finance side. And we've done a nice job in the last few years. And we've seen our bond rating increased due to that. So I think we just stay the course, continue to do what we're doing, kind of divide and conquer. I think council has a great team in place now with a lot of experience and should do a great job pushing through the line item detail. That's about all I have. Happy to take any questions from council, from the Board of Finance. Happy to let anybody else on the Board of Finance comment or bring up any concerns they may have as well.
Why don't we start with the Board of Finance? Does anyone want to say anything? Just identify yourself for those digitally. Mr. Kirsch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve Kirsch, Board of Finance. I'd like to start and echo the chair in thanking both the council and the Board of Finance chairs for agreeing to do this meeting. I do think it has proved to be helpful in the past. I think this is a very good budget as a starting point. However, I hope that both bodies will take a hard and critical look at what has been proposed. Some of the items that I would be interested in you all digging into. For example, the first selectman reduced his departmental submissions by $979,000. And the question is, what was in there? What aren't we doing? Why were they taken out? When might we do those things if they are of value? Because obviously the department heads thought they were. And you'll find that number on the first selectman's presentation, page 14. I'd like to understand why we are leaving the engineering technician position vacant, as indicated in the first selectman's presentation on page 10. When it comes to roads, I still believe that the $2 million is less than the outside professionals have said we need to do back in their report in 2019. I'd still like to see that increased some more, even if that means doing some bonding. I'm concerned, as they expressed in their report, that our PCI will not be going up significantly or may even be declining. It's especially true because some of the money that we've been budgeting over the last couple of years has gone to the storm drain replacements, necessary, absolutely, but obviously that takes away from doing the asphalt. I do appreciate that the first selectman has added more money for roads into the operating budget. That was something that the town was actually promised would happen all the way back in 2010 when we started down this road, and we've had that go in fits and starts. I'm also happy to see that the tree warden has additional funding. We've talked for a number of years that there's just a lot of trees that are dying and that need to come down. And I can speak from personal experience that last year I had 2 trees on town property adjacent to mine. One broke off partly, and had I had a car along my driveway, I would have lost a car. So I do know that we need to do more, and I do appreciate that that was increased. Let's see, what else? I'm pleased that the Board of Education the Board of Education was left untouched by the first selectman. The other thing I'd like to talk about at some point is the Board of Education capital. If you look at their submission, it makes sense to me, although on a year-over-year basis, year-by-year basis, for the next 5 years, it might be more balanced. They have very low one year and much higher the next. And leveling things out is how we've been trying to do things over historically. So I'd like to have that looked at. And that's about it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kirsch. Is there anyone else from the Board of Finance? Ms. Hall?
Yeah, this is Mary Hall from the Board of Finance. Mike, I know that we said at the last Board of Finance meeting that we were going to have a special meeting with the Board of Education on the special education that might be spending more this year in this year's budget. Could we also take a look at, because as I looked through the budget, I didn't really see anything significantly put aside for that special education for the upcoming budget that we're currently going to be voting on. So maybe there's an opportunity. I'd like the town council to take a look at that also.
Town council can't be involved in education by charter. So
If I could-
they can't touch that. And we do have a meeting scheduled for an entire evening with the Board of Ed to cover anything we want. And I'm assuming special ed will be a big part of that.
That'll be the meeting on the 31st of March. Is that when we'll?
Yes.
Okay.
If I could just clarify, just to make sure there's no misunderstanding, there's already $1 million in special appropriation that is beyond our unassigned fund balance that has been earmarked for special education. That is not a lapsing fund.
Correct.
So that's still there.
Okay.
So that's why,
Board of Finance voted on that, set that up.
so that's intact. Okay.
Right.
Very good.
Anything else from Board of Finance? I don't want to keep them too late.
We're doing fine. Whatever you need.
Is there anybody? Last call. All right, I'll go to town council. Anybody at town council have a question about scheduling? The only, well, before I open up to the rest of town council, what I will say is, what I would ask is, we do have those 2 dates for the departments, which we'll go over after our joint session about who everybody wants to speak to over those 2 evenings. I would ask that any adjustments be made by motion on our meeting on the 15th. That those meetings, we just keep to the departments and discussion, and then excuse me, the 14th, we'll have the meeting, our regular meeting. And that we'll make any motions at that time for any adjustments that any town council member thinks needs to be made. Okay, I would ask that, and I would also ask that the motions be given to the rest of the council by that Sunday evening, so that everyone has a fair opportunity to get anyone's suggestions. All right, so now I'll open up to town council. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Mauer?
thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Also, thank you to the Board of Finance. I agree with what Chairman Mandros has stated at the outset of this meeting. I find that this joint meeting in past years has been very helpful to make sure we're all on a similar page and all have an idea of what each and others' goals are. And I've found them to be extremely helpful throughout these budget processes. My only question with regards to process is dealing with the capital budget, in that I know in the past we've kind of looked at it a couple of different ways as to whether, because the actual capital meeting is after town council hands off to Board of Finance, whether the Board of Finance feels it prudent for adjustments to be made prior to it even coming to the Board of Finance, or whether they'd rather us be just in attendance that meeting to recommend those possible changes or ideas for the Board of Finance to make those decisions upon.
I'm comfortable either way. I know you have meetings with strategic planning set up. And to me, if you want to say, hey, we all are in agreement that we want to push this project, that's maybe in year 1 to year 3, I would recommend you make those changes going in. Because again, I'm not looking to have the Board of Finance make those decisions. We will only come back to that if we say, hey, we only are comfortable bonding 5 million this year and 7 million this year, and we're going to go over if we do all of those. So maybe we can push one back. But that would be a conversation we would come back to you with. And, in the past, we've kind of said, we've given council kind of a range of where our comfort level is. I'm happy to do that again this year if you think that would help for us to say, hey, anywhere between 4 and 6, we're comfortable. Beyond that, we might be a little bit of a reach. We can certainly have that meeting on our side and share that with the council if you think that'll help.
If you could, I think that would be extremely helpful, just as we do go into making the changes. If we know that the Board of Finance is thinking, what, chances are we only have that 4 to 6, then it gives us an idea of, hey, where do we want to look at things as to what our priorities are to send forward to finance.
That would be awesome.
That's all for me, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mauer. Anyone else from town council?
I have a question.
Ms. Martin?
Mike, it's Dee Dee Martin.
Wait.
What was the number you gave for what was coming off bonding this year?
5 million.
5 million. Okay.
So, and again, historically, we've tried to, keep things relatively level, rolling on and rolling off. Over the last few years, I think because of COVID and because of some of the other issues, some of the big projects never really got off the ground, and we probably pushed a few things back. So our overall level is quite low right now. So, I would certainly have appetite for a little higher if everybody else did. But again, we can discuss with our board and, get you a range that we're all comfortable with.
Okay. I'd be interested also in seeing that range. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Mr. O'Rourke?
I'm not sure anybody can answer this question, but just to refresh me, with regards to the proposed budget that we reviewed last year, what was the total correction or reductions after visiting with all of the town heads on the municipal side of the budget last year? Do we have that number?
I don't have that at my fingertips, but I would say it's probably in the same ballpark as the reductions I made in the current year.
Which was?
Remember, Ron?
If you want, I can go grab
I'm sure it's a similar
I could go grab my book, but if I recall correctly, it was around in the 8s rather than in the 9s, but still in the general ballpark. I could be off on the years, but
Well, I guess the question I'm asking is, I'm not necessarily talking about the reduction that the first selectman had put to the municipal side. I'm talking about the reductions after we spent however many hours reviewing each one of the department heads, what our final reduction on top of the first selectman's reduction was on the municipal side.
Mr. One second, Mr. Mauer. Mr. O'Rourke, you're asking about the town council adjustments?
Correct.
Okay. I do have those here. Decrease fire marshal expense, $500. Increase emergency management operating expense, $3,904. Decrease fire marshal office expense. Oh, no, that was not accepted. Decrease health office expense by $7,774.
7,000 what?
$7,774.
Okay.
Yes. That was it.
That was it.
Yeah, that was it. And then there was an increase by $3,904.
All right, so the reduction,
The net increase was about $2,600.
$2,600 after council adjustments. Okay.
$2,630.
plus $2,600 increase.
Yeah.
And that was on a $93 million, $283 million budget, right?
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Any other discussion from town council? Any questions about scheduling before we let these fine Board of Finance people leave for the evening? Hearing none, I'd like to thank Chairman Manjos and the entire Board of Finance for attending our joint meeting.
No, thanks for having us. And if anything else does come up in the meantime over the next couple of weeks and you need information or us to come back for any particular reason, we're certainly open to being there for support in any way you need.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate everyone's hard work.
Perfect. Good luck.
Have a very nice budget at the end.
Thank you. I think we will. Thanks.
6 minutes to the public hearing.
All right. We have finished our joint meeting. All right, number 4, discussion on desired workshops with departments regarding fiscal year 2022, 2023 budget. All right, so we have 2 days. We have the Wednesday, March 2nd, Tuesday, March 8th. It's Ralph's birthday, I guess. He can come if he'd like. We can have cake.
Sure he might, yes, definitely.
All right, so what I will say is I will leave it to the discretion of the first selectman on which days the department heads can attend.
I appreciate giving us as much flexibility to.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple things. There's, we want to schedule wise, but also I'll try to load balance it so that we're not, too overwhelmed on either night.
Mr. O'Rourke.
All right, so with regards to the change in the budget last year from the proposed budget and after town council's adjustments, I guess if I did this right, and math was not my strong suit, I come up with a 0.0000279% of the $93,049,287 budget.
Are there any department heads that you would like to meet with, Mr. O'Rourke?
No.
No, okay. All right, I would ask the Department of Public Works, have Chris come in, only because of the significant bonding and the purchases with capital projects. All right, well, I'll go to the line here. Ms. Martin?
I'd like to see, talk, Public Works I have down and EMS, in the town attorney line.
Okay.
I had senior center. I think I'd still go with that because I still have some questions on that.
So social services
Social
are,
services, yeah.
okay. Anybody else, Dee?
Nope.
Mr. Chair?
I was going to do here and then I'll jump over to you, Jason, for anybody who wants to say, okay?
I have no questions.
Nobody? Okay. I just had Public Works. Sean doesn't have anybody. Who appears for, Jason, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, I would like to thank the first selectman. There has been an item that I have tended to concentrate on for the years that I've been on council, mainly being operating and office expenses. And usually it's only amounts of ranging from $500 to $5,000, small amounts. But where I've seen 5-year averages much over or relatively over what we actually spend. And I did notice a decent number of deductions on the first selectman's part in those exact categories, which had been what I had been pushing for the past few years. So I just want to say that I'm appreciative of that effort, and I did notice it. So thank you. And because of that, my list is significantly shorter than it has been in past years.
All right, Jason, who do you want to see?
I have the assessor.
Mr. Feldman.
And EMS.
Okay, I think Dee Dee wanted.
It's already mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, and was emergency management mentioned?
No.
Then
So
that's the
let's,
only, that would be the only one. I forgot whether it was EMS or emergency management that Councilwoman Martin had mentioned. Outside of the ones that have been mentioned, those are my only additions.
Okay, great.
I would just footnote for you, Mr. Mauer, it did, in my analysis with finance, the overall enterprise level office expense is a reduction in total as well. So thank you for noting that.
I did notice that, and I was greatly appreciative that that was taken. It certainly was very apparent that that was taken a look at this year. So I did appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, Jessica, anybody that we didn't mention yet?
No, every department I've had on my list has been mentioned, so I'm good.
All right, thank you. Donna Lynn.
Nope, like Jessica, everything on my list has been mentioned.
Perfect. Kevin Reed.
No.
Oh, great. I think that's everybody, right? We might be able to do this in one night.
Possible. So if I may, just to make sure that I've got the list correct, I have Department of Public Works, Emergency Medical Services, Town Attorney, Social Services and the Senior Center, Assessor, and Emergency Management. Did I miss anything?
Sound
Just
right,
the
Jeff?
town attorney.
I said that.
Oh, did you? I did not hear that.
That's okay.
Nobody? That's everybody? Sounds, Ms. Martin.
Yeah, I had a question on Park and Rec, but I don't know if we need director to come in. It could possibly be something that it was on salary, part-time salaries.
Certainly.
So I don't think I'll think on that a little more and let you know, but I don't.
Do you know what the question is? We can have first selectman look it up in the meantime.
Not in detail.
Okay, not a problem. All right, so I will ask the first selectman, if possible, one meeting.
I will do my best.
All right.
And
Whichever one.
Okay.
They can do, if it can be one meeting.
Okay.
That'd be nice.
And Councilman Martin, if you can think of a question, and it's something I can address in my update on Monday, I can try to do that to avoid, any delays in that, but it's up to you. Yep. And for now, I will keep Parks and Rec off
I think so.
the workshop schedule.
Yes.
Okay.
And with the proposed, I'm sorry,
Yes, sir.
with the proposed increase of 1.84% on the 93,049,000 change, I don't have the other three numbers. I appreciate the first selectman's explanation as to how we derived at that number and the drivers, particularly the insurance premiums in one area that are going up, wages that are also going up. What was the third driver on that?
Well, I mean, we do have some increases so we're doing more I mean, it's not a cost driver, but we are doing more capital out of operating expense here. And you just have the overall increase in cost of goods and supplies, all driven by primarily the pandemic and supply chain issues and labor issues. So I'm sorry, fuel, I mean, gasoline is up. Heating oil is up. Every service contract that we have, ranging from relatively small services to the large contracts, they're all coming at us with increases.
And the biggest driver that I forgot to mention, which is on a part of the budget that we have no bearing on, which is the increase in the student enrollment.
Correct.
So laying those out in the manner that which you did and justifying the 1.84, I can't speak for everybody here, but I'm satisfied with that explanation. I'm satisfied with that increase and satisfied with the proposed budget.
Thank you, appreciate it. And everyone knows I don't approach proposed mill rate increases lightly, but given what inflation is at this point and cost of everything going on, it's unavoidable without having a detrimental impact to services.
With regards to the headcount increases for the Board of Ed, if you could just remind us, what are we looking at for the increase on the number of students again?
I don't have that at my fingertips. I don't know if Ron has that.
Was it over 100? Or am I
believe it was.
Yeah, I believe so. And it's not only, it's where the increase is happening.
Of course. So I mean, that in itself, that driver in itself is just, it's one that is impossible to adjust for,
Yeah, I know from the Board of Ed meetings that I viewed online there, the issue is not simply the number, but as Ron was starting to say, it's not spread out amongst all the grades where you may be able to absorb it more easily. It's pretty much focused in kindergarten and maybe a little bit first grade. And that's going to be a bump that's going to kind of run through the system.
And the anticipated, when we go back and forth for how long it takes on the various department heads, well, in last year's instance, we went up by 2,600. So maybe it'll be, a minimal reduction or a minimal increase, to which I pointed out last year came out to 0.450297, what other percent of the budget.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. All right. I think we're running into our public hearing, but that's okay. Mr. First Selectman, what do we have to do for this public hearing? Do we have to reopen?
No, it is on the agenda of this meeting. So all it would require is for you to announce that the public hearing is open, solicit speakers, and then when there are no more, you can close the public hearing and go on with your agenda.
Great. All right, so I'm going to close item 4, discussion on desired workshops with departments regarding the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. And I'm going to open up the public hearing this evening. We have many people here in the audience tonight who'd like to be heard on the budget. We'll start with all those attending here in person. Is there any, would you like to know? No? Okay. Any of our wonderful staff like to? No? Okay. All right, online. So what I would ask you to do for this public hearing.
You could raise your hand too if they're.
Oh, we can do that.
You can do that now.
You can raise your hand virtually. Who would like to be acknowledged for public participation in the public hearing this evening. Otherwise, I would ask you to unmute yourself and state your name, and I'll create a list and go down the list with how many ever people we have, okay? All right, so if you'd like to participate, I would ask that you raise your hand at this point or unmute yourself and state your name.
Or both.
Why not? I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone here attending virtually, either by phone or computer or tablet or however else you get on there, that would like to participate at this time by raising your virtual hand and or unmuting yourself and stating your name? Well, not very talkative bunch.
Jason, raise your hand just so we can make sure it works.
Oh, yeah, why don't we see that? I see Dennis.
Dennis Condon, yeah.
So he can't hear us. I believe Mrs. Kellogg.
Yeah, there it goes. Yeah.
There we go. Thank you, Jessica.
Okay.
All right, so that works.
Oh, there
All
it is.
There's Jason. Okay. All right. I assume that you guys were just raising your hand to test it for us. Thank you. All right. One more time. Anybody here virtually want to participate in the public hearing? Please unmute yourself or raise your hand. Hearing none.
Sun is on.
Mr. Kellogg, I think I can close this public hearing.
It would seem there are no one seeking to speak.
All right. Well, don't worry. The next item on our agenda is public participation.
That's right.
So you have another opportunity this evening. If you'd like to participate at this time, if you are here, please step up to the microphone. If you're here virtually, please raise your hand or unmute yourself and state your name for the record. I'll create a list and go down the list for participation. One more time, please unmute yourself, raise your hand if you'd like to participate. No takers this evening. I'm going to close public participation. And I'm going to adjourn this meeting at.
Mr. Chair, before you adjourn.
Yes, Mr. Maurer.
Thank you. I just wanted to give the first selectman as well as the finance department my couple of short questions I had for them so that they have the time to prepare for the meeting. Whichever meeting we're at, if the selectman can just give a little bit of information on 3 items, if he doesn't mind. One is the increase in the capital reserve amount on page 16. One is on page 19, the intergovernmental town increase. I have an idea as to what that is, I think, but I want to make sure I'm correct. And 2, if you can just prepare a little bit about the amount of money that is being utilized from basically COVID relief and state and federal aid in that sense, as well as what, if any, is planned to be utilized from our rainy day fund, from our reserves.
Certainly.
Anybody else?
One last comment.
Yes, Mr. O'Rourke.
I know this is always an interesting point for me, and sometimes the public maybe doesn't get a chance to absorb this as completely as they should. But with regards to the grand list, which is, a driver on what you can or can't do on a budget. In this particular year, I don't have the exact number, but I'm under the impression that we're plus 3% more on the grand list than we were a year ago. So the 1.84% being proposed as an increase, there is a nearly 3% or maybe even more than a 3% increase on the grand list.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. All right. I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 7:09 p.m. and I will see everyone on Monday.